Welcome to the Nanovation podcast. Information about this and other episodes can be found at fillerlab.com/nanovation. If you like what you hear, be sure to tell a friend or leave a review at Apple Podcasts. It really does help. I welcome your thoughts and suggestions. You can contact me on Twitter at Michael Filler or via email at nanovationpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you to the Chi Foundation for their generous financial support.
We have over the years developed a super slip coating, which is very complicated in that way that it's optimized chromium nitride. And then we ion implant it in an ion implanter, just like the semiconductor industry, with nitrogen. And then it gets unique release properties. So when you mold something, you can easily get the plastic out of the mold, much easier. And that means you can take it out fast. Maybe you don't have to cool that much down. So your cycle time decreases. And instead of having 7 seconds in cycle times, you might go down to 3 seconds. So you have more than a factor of 2 in productivity.
That's Lars Pleth Nielsen, the director of the Tribology Centre at the Danish Technological Institute. His team works with customers to invent, advance, and industrially deploy coating technologies. Coatings are thin layers that cover most of the materials made today. They can offer protection from the environment, impart different surface properties, and much more. It's easy, in fact, to argue that coating technology was one of the first nanotechnologies. On this episode of Nanovation, Lars recounts a variety of stories from his research career, ranging from his exploration of the reaction of hydrogen and oxygen as a child to the remarkable superslip coating he's currently working to bring to market. We also discuss his 2-volume book that he co-authored with his colleague and longtime friend Per Møller, and which is considered by many to be the Bible of coating technology. Be sure to stay for the after show if you're a fan of Lego. Lars has a delightful dry humor and understated personality that comes through in our discussion, and which really helps to bring to life the stories he shares. When we were finished, I just wanted to hear more, and I'm pretty sure you'll feel the same way. This is the Nanovation Podcast, an exploration of big innovations emerging from small things. I'm Mike Filler, your host and a professor at the Georgia Institute of Technology. Enjoy the show. So it's my pleasure today to welcome Dr. Lars Pleth Nielsen from the Danish Technological Institute in, actually, what city are you in?
Yeah, we are sitting in Aarhus, which is the second largest city in Denmark, around 330,000 people.
Great. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And you're the director of the Tribology Centre, is that correct?
That's correct, and it's I think it's 1 out of 45 business units inside Danish Technological Institute, and we are around 20 people that has to survive from our knowledge and our services on a commercial platform. We have to pay our own salary and pay our own depreciation on our machines and equipment. So we have to make something that makes a huge difference for our customers.
Wow. Okay. So I'm a semiconductor person by training, so I would want to say this sounds a little bit like IMEC. Is that true in terms of the structure?
Yeah, in terms of the structure, it's something similar. As we are a non-profit organization, we have no shareholders taking out all our money. Our money is reinvested whenever we earn something and have paid all our bills. It's reinvested in our equipment, our people, our knowledge. So in that way, it's a very nice place to be, because if you make a difference, if you make some good coatings, if you make good research and development, moving it into production, yeah, then we have something that can grow into the future. Yeah.
So is the kind of work you do largely pre-competitive, or is it something a company would specifically hire you to work on?
We have many different types of customers. So we are working both very confidential with some customers that buy our services. We would like a coating like this and this with these and these specifications. We can develop it. We can produce prototypes. We can go upscaling. We can move it into real mass production. We also do a lot of more open projects which are non-confidential, together with several companies funded by the Danish state, European network, international projects. So we can be both very confidential, we can be very open, we can be more general. So it's really on a matter on the case, I would say.
Okay. So you have a PhD in surface science from Aarhus.
That's from the local university, yeah. It's actually a funny story because originally when I was a young child, I was playing a little with also actually with surface science when I was 12 years old. I made hydrogen electrolysis and made a big explosion, and my parents confiscated my power supply. And I made copper plating when I was 10 years old. So I have always been interested in surface science. And as a young guy, I actually thought I should be an electrician. But then in high school, gymnasium, it's in Danish high school, more American way. I had this very nice teacher that brought me and the physics group to the university for trip tours, and I saw all the equipment, and I really thought this is a place for me somehow to start. And it was also at the same time when Niels Bohr had his 100th anniversary, as he got the Nobel Prize in the atomic physics. And we made a big arrangement at the gymnasium where we invited all the big stars, the professors from Niels Bohr's institute, and they came to Viborg, where I had my high school time, and we made a lecturing series with 10 talks. And at that time, it was really I was really got get interested in physics, and I thought this I have to go and study physics. And at that time, I also thought it should be accelerators, nuclear science, and stuff like that. But then I met a very famous Dane called Flemming Besenbacher, which brought me into the area of nanoscience and scanning tunnel microscopy and the art of looking at individual atoms on the surface. And then I really got in that direction and took my PhD in surface science. And I have actually been into surface science since then. I think now it's more than 25 years since I graduated with a PhD. So after my PhD, I went into catalysis, and I went into the semiconductor industry like you. I made photonic band gaps and all types of strange surface structures. But it's again building layer on layer on the atomic level, putting a glass layer on CVD, PVD, and also ion implantation. And then I ended up at the Tribology Centre, where I have been heading the Tribology Centre now for 15 years nearly, creating new types of innovative solution on surfaces. So surfaces is my life, even from child, where I made hydrogen from surfaces, electroplating of copper. It's really my passion. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. So let's put that on hold for 1 second, and we'll come back to that. But before we move away from your training, if you read your LinkedIn page or another website, you'll find that Lars also has a managerial degree in organization management and innovation. And I was curious when that happened and what drove you to get that degree as well, in addition to your PhD.
Yeah, I cannot answer why I started on it.
Okay.
It just came to my mind that the area between being a very, very, very brilliant nerd and bring it into application, there you also might need the ability to think a little on the economy, think a little on what is the key point indicators for companies to interact with you, why are they interested in you, what can you supply, what is the cutting edge for them, what on the economy level of scales. That was somehow, I thought it might be a good idea also to have that in the toolbox as well. And then I also were very interested in innovation, also how people create new ideas, how to make diversity and let people with different background talk together and get new ideas, also be inspired what you do not know, but in the area between two scientific topics meeting in that area, there's something new that can be created.
I was curious, are you familiar with the book The Innovator's Dilemma?
No, I don't know that book.
It's a worthwhile read, and it's light, but it has some good points. The main point being, and what he tries to answer is why really successful companies that seem to be doing everything right eventually don't. And it's kind of unintuitive up front why this happens. And, Microsoft, there's lots of examples of this where they're doing everything right, making lots of money, and they fall off a cliff. And people think, well, it's just bad management or something. But it turns out, if you look at it from the right perspective, they're doing everything to make their customers happy, etc. But they're fundamentally missing some new technology that's emerging that eventually just undercuts them.
Several of these cases with the flat screen, with the digital camera, and but we are constantly moving. It's a very big problem for the very, very used companies because they have used a lot of investment in their production plant. If they suddenly cannot use that any longer, they stand there without any pants on, or whatever it's saying. So for us, that will never be the problem because we are agile, everyday agile, new ideas, new solutions. That is also why you say production eats all. So if you really go into humongous volume of production, then you lost your capability to innovate if you do not put that in a separate company.
Right, yeah. Keeping that separate is
and very few companies survive 100 years. So that's very few, maybe only 1 out of 100 or even fewer manage to continue to navigate. Which is also why Danish Technological Institute is very nice. We have now, I think, 110 years anniversary soon.
Wow.
Or even more. And that's because we continue to have all these small subgroups which are navigating, have their own budget plans. And if they cannot survive, a single group dies, but then another group emerge because we have to provide the knowledge that the industry needs. And in Denmark, there's a lot going on robotics, actually. We have this huge cluster on robotics and automation, which is booming. A new company was just sold for, 1.7 billion last week. Humongous amount of money. Yeah.
Was the mission of DTI was it the same 100 years ago?
Yes. The original founder of Danish Technological Institute had this idea that you should, I don't know if I can remember the saying correct, but it's something like you always have to stand at the cross where new knowledge is developed. So you should be in front of the market. You should always go for the area where new knowledge is needed. So in that way, our mission, if we should rewrite it in a modern language, I think it would be the same as Gunnar Gregersen wrote it 110 years ago. Always be in front of the market. Yeah.
Wise words. So let's go talk about surface science and surface coatings a bit. Broadly, this podcast is about nanotechnology and nanoscience, and as we both know, nothing is new under the sun. And so, for example, catalysis has been nanoscale for a long, long time, and so have surface coatings. Right? They've been, some of them have been of nanoscale thickness, let's say, for plenty of time. And so that's why when Andrew suggested Lars, I said this is ideal because this is a community that's been thinking about problems for decades and decades. And the average new nanoscientist often doesn't recognize that this community exists and it's really important and has always been important. So that's why I thought it would be great to have you on. Why don't you talk a little bit about surface coatings and when was the first surface coating? If we have any idea of what that was, how are they used today? If you could overview for listeners surface coatings.
Yeah, it's a big question to answer in a few minutes. I used to say that coating is everything. To my knowledge, and I'm of course always limited to what I know, that some of the oldest coating is the cave paintings made, I don't know, maybe 2,000-3,000 years before Christ in the caves of Spain. So there you painted the hunting of animals and whatever. And also in Egypt, we have old Egypt things. We have gold coatings where they have mixed mercury with gold, and the mercury was evaporated, and the painter got ill, and the nice queen got her gold coated, whatever. So coating has been known for thousands of years. But the real industrialization of coatings, that came actually with the electricity, I would say, and the power. So when you have the power, you can start to navigate, and also the knowledge of the periodic table, of course, which was basically simultaneously with the electric power. They get you the knowledge to engineer coatings. As people very often have realized that the noble metals they can stand forever, so you can start to plate gold, silver, palladium, platinum, iridium when you get the ability to use the power, the electric source. And that has then brought us into zinc, nickel, copper, tin, and chromium plating, which are some of the most important types of electroplating coating we are using today. And then if we go into the car industry, then zinc, nickel, chrome, and copper are very important, but also aluminum oxide, the ability to oxidize in a controlled way, aluminum and titanium brought us into areas where we get wear-resistant aluminum and corrosion-resistant aluminum, corrosion-resistant titanium because it's self-passivate also by itself. And then later on in the history, within the last 30, 40 years, we have developed these very nice physical vapor deposition coating, ion implantation, as you know from the semicon industry, thermal spraying, hard facing, and now we have Brazilian types of paints. Paints can really be formulated in many different ways. So I think there are so many different types of surface coatings that are available on a commercial level. And if you're an idiot, then you choose a wrong solution for a wrong product, and then you have a solution that do not survive. So I think we are now in an area where a lot of good solutions are available. We are of course developing constantly new types of solution, but we have to be aware of what is the right solution for the right problem, choose the right coating to make really good products. And that's where things are going now. That is, we want to make sustainability, we want to make lifetimes, we want to make things to survive, we want to have no failures, we want to have production equipment that can work for months without maintenance. And that's where we are now. That's really this optimized coating, the right solutions for the right problem.
Do you have any sense for what, if I were to integrate all the coatings in the world, what's the area of coating we do on like a yearly basis?
Oh, it's a lot, because you cannot buy anything. I do not have the numbers. We have estimated them in our corrosion book. We are writing on a new book also now. But it's a lot of money. You cannot buy anything without it has been treated with anything. As everything is coated, treated, painted, electroplated, hot dip galvanized, ionized, whatever. It's there's so many things going on all surfaces. You cannot buy anything that's not modified. Just where I'm sitting here, I have a lamp that is painted. I have a bottle of water in a can that has been made from alumina that's anodized. I have my portable PC in front of here. I see plastic which is coated with something. I see metal frames. I see aluminum on my screen. I see copper plugs that are plated, which will corrode because they're saving on the metal. So I see a lot of good solutions, but I also definitely see a lot of bad solutions.
It's funny, I wanted to ask that question for a particular reason, and listeners of the podcast will know that my view on what is quote-unquote scalable, something that can be technologically successful at a large scale, is often misunderstood by people in the scientific community. And there are often comments made in cutting-edge nanoscience papers about how something done in a glass beaker in a hood must be scalable. And I say look no farther than coatings, whether it's electroplating or vapor deposition. These are not done in a hood and they're not done in a beaker, and we coat everything. Yeah. And so there is these things are all quite scalable, and so we should.
And it's very, very important, and that's also why to work with us is a little expensive compared to what you. I wouldn't say it's expensive, but we are doing in that way that we are doing all our development on large scale equipment. That means when we have developed something that is accepted by our customers, then we are immediately at the production level. It's not like if you work with the universities, then they can Saturday evening on a 1x1 square centimeter silicon wafer, they can create a solution that can characterize it, and then they think it's good, and then they show it to the customer, and then the customer, okay, I think it's good. I would like to have this 3-dimensional object coated, and then everything stops because they cannot rotate anything in their vacuum chamber.
Right.
So we are doing everything on a production plan.
So how do you balance, learning and the cost with that scale with doing something new?
Yeah, that's of course complicated. We have the depreciation of our equipment, we have the material cost, and we have our people, and everything have to balance. And how do we give a price, and how do we convince? Sometimes we do something for free to get started. Sometimes we make a small startup cost to the customers. That depends a little upon how much we have to modify, how much we have to change on our existing knowledge. As we have a huge experience, so something can be done very easily, something takes years, and if it takes years, then it has to be a development project involving universities and external funding. That's all the bricks you can put together. Fast and easy, pay up front, or long and complicated, writing a research proposal, getting a no, and then you write it again, and then finally it's funded. And over the last 10 years, we have 35 research projects funded. So I'm every evening writing on something. If it's not my next book, then it's on a research proposal or whatever, reporting on other research projects, input to the upper management systems or whatever.
Right.
But it all boils down to, it's a flow. You have to flow something in and something has to come out. And as long as there's not enough flowing in, new ideas, new customers, new research projects, something will also flow out in the other end. And hopefully that makes a difference. The good projects for us is, of course, where we develop something that we can move into our production, where we can capitalize from our knowledge.
Right.
It's always nice to develop something that has a market or a need or solve a problem.
So let's talk about one of those problems you might have worked on. I mean, you were mentioning a second ago that everything is coded. Some things are coded properly or with a material that makes sense, and some are not. Can you kind of give a case study for us, or describe a case study of a coating, maybe something that had been poor in the past that you all worked on and now it's been improved? Hopefully no trade secrets will be revealed.
As we have many examples. As one of those I like a lot for the moment, which we are heavily engaged in, also with other universities and cooperation across borders with the university in Switzerland, is connected to injection molding. As everything is now going to be made in plastic, more and more plastics devices are made, and it's getting more and more complicated geometry, smaller and smaller devices. So it's really getting into a serious area where you cannot get the plastic easily out of the mold after molding. And there we have developed a super slip coating. We call it chromium nitride super slip. And molds are horrible expensive. So if you want such a 10 or 12 or 30 or 32 cavity mold, it costs maybe easily 1 million Danish kroner or 2 million Danish kroner. That's $400,000 for such a mold. And you do not make experiments with such a mold. If you tell such a plastic molding company, we have a good idea, we do not try our new coating, they will not try anything. They want to have what is working. So we have over the years developed a super slip coating, which is very complicated in that way. That is optimized chromium nitride. Everybody can make chromium nitride, but we have a unique chromium nitride. And then we iron implant it in an iron implanter, just like the semiconductor industry, with nitrogen. And then it gets unique release properties. So when you mold something, you can easily get the plastic out of the mold, much easier. And that means you can take it out fast. Maybe you don't have to cool that much down. So your cycle time decreases. And instead of having 7 seconds in cycle times, you might go down to 3 seconds. So you have more than a factor of 2 in productivity.
So you said you were implanting something on the surface of the mold?
Yeah, so first we take the mold and then we coat it with chromium nitride in our PVD unit. Then we move it into our accelerators and then we shoot nitrogen into the surface. And then we saturate all the chromium atoms, and in that way they cannot affiliate bond or whatever. We do not really have the exact reason why it works, but then you get an easy release surface where you can get the plastic out very easily. And that boils down now, I come back to this, that the molds are very expensive. So together with the companies, together with the university in Switzerland, we actually built and constructed a mold where we have a built-in force sensor. So when you want to take the plastic out of the mold, you measure the force while pulling. So in that way, we now have a tool where we can make thumb up or thumb down. This is better, this is worse. And then we can now start to make second generation of a super slip coating, because now we can measure if in that geometry it's getting better or worse.
So this would be like one sensor at the interface between the mold and the part?
Yeah, you can imagine that what the type of test item we are molding is like like the header of a pencil, the pencil you write with.
Yeah.
So there's something inside the header when you mold it, so that it get this cylindrical form and not filled with plastic inside, but there's something inside. And then when you drag the header off, this core on the inside is mounted to a force sensor. So it is quantifying the release properties when you pull the head off the core. Right.
For a bigger part, could you imagine many force sensors that are touching different parts of the part and the mold as it gets pulled out?
Yes, you can imagine that, because we are working together with also companies in Denmark that makes very, very complicated molds where things are pulled out, and while pulled out they are rotating, so you could easily put torque sensors on many different types of devices inside that mold that are removed before the plastic is ejected.
Wow, okay.
So this is an area where we are quite active. Also in the medical area, we have developed and patented a new type of coating which contains strontium. You know, in the periodic table we have calcium in the top, then you have strontium underneath in the column, and calcium you have in the bone. So we had this idea that if you have strontium, you might also could somehow change the ability to facilitate bone growth. So we developed a coating based on titanium and strontium to be put on titanium implants, which goes into the bones if you have broken your bones or been in a car accident or whatever, or if you need to go to the dentals and get an implant tooth. And then we developed such a coating together with the university and some companies, also institutions involved in animal testing. And then we made these coatings and we designed them so they could release strontium. And we characterized the release profile. And then we tested them in animals, both in rats and rabbits. And we saw a tremendous amount of accelerated bone growth. So now we have patented it, and we are in dialogue with implant companies to put it on the market.
So I have two naive questions. The first one is, why not calcium?
Yeah, why not calcium? Everybody works with calcium, so why not try something new and better?
Okay. And then what's the mechanism of strontium release?
It's I think it's driven by the fluid around the implants. And due to the ability of strontium to be released, as we have designed the structure, and we also patented that, so that it has a porous system. So in that way, strontium can leach out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a strontium is fairly reactive. This was also some part of our learning, because I thought to make strontium is easy, just buy a strontium target, but we realized that pure 100% strontium is so reactive that it reacts with the humidity in the air, creating strontium oxides, which is somehow aggressive, and it was not a nice experience. We had to pack it down again in oil, this target. So we found another solution. So strontium is a very reactive atom. Yeah.
Did you have to study the biocompatibility of it, or did you know it was okay?
Yes, we have studied that as well. We have studied biocompatibility, toxicity, and I would say that the work in this project has been also the regulatory issues, and we are still not done with that. It's still in progress, but we have some interesting large worldwide companies looking at our solution now. So this is very, very nice. And this idea was just bought on a meeting in my office. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's how most of this stuff happens. It's great. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about your outstanding book. So when we first were emailing, you said, or I said, I might have asked you for an article, and then you said, well, why don't I send you my entire 2-volume book? And and you're the first guest to send me a book when I asked for an article. So
and not one book, but 2 books.
2 books, and they're not small. Okay, so I'm going to measure this real quick. They're sitting on my desk, and they're probably each about 2 inches thick. Those are American engineering units. So 4 inches thick combined. They're called Advanced Surface Technology, and you co-authored these with your colleague, Per. How do you pronounce his last name?
Per Møller, yeah.
Okay, Per Møller. And what led you to want to write this book?
Yeah, as first I have to tell you a funny story. Because Per and me hasn't worked together for many years. We didn't know of each other's existence. He's 100% into electroplating, and I'm 100% into PVD in this small country here. And maybe close to 20 years ago, I decided to knock on his door. And immediately we just felt this type of energy where he had his field, I had my field, and in the area between we could create so many new things. And we have developed a very, very good friendship. I think he's my best friend. And we are talking for many years every morning from 7:30 to 8 in the car, and every evening 5:30 to 6 in the car home again. So I'm talking to him often more than I'm talking to my wife. So over the years we have developed many ideas and solved many problems for the industry. And at a certain point of view, Per said, I have a small Danish book which I use at university. Shouldn't we sit down and make an upgrade of that in English? And then we decided to do it. We wrote first one part or few chapters, and he's teaching at the Technical University in Copenhagen, and he has a lot of foreign students, so it was obvious to change his small Danish first whatever version of something into English and upgrade it. So we decided to upgrade it, and we went from 300 pages to 1,240 pages over 4 years, I think. So we wrote nearly every evening in 4 years on this book. So it's only written in our spare time. We have no time to do it in our working time. So we made chapters, iterate on them, printed them, taught university students in them, made them come with feedback. What do we not understand? What is strange written? Because you know everything, we know nothing. So we iterated on the book over 4 years. And then we ended up in the version now lying on your desk. And then we also decided to print it ourselves, because it should have a low price, because we want to get it out into the world. We want to get it into the students. We want to help the universe and everything. So we printed it ourselves, keeping the cost as low as possible.
You know, I thought when reading through this that it would also be great as a online course.
Yes, and we are running several courses. I have been teaching in Switzerland, in Holland, in Germany, in Belgium, in Sweden. Per has been online teaching for the Nokia concern when they had some problems some years ago. So we are constantly teaching in it. Per is also teaching in it in university, and it's teaching in it also now in Aarhus at the engineering high school. They're using it in Holland now, also at university. So we are definitely planning on making such an online course in it also, and I think we have maybe more than 3,000 overheads already on everything. So in principle, we could sit down and teach in it from tomorrow.
So when you set out to overhaul the book, it was intended then for a university course. Is that correct?
When we started out, I had no idea of where to using it. I just thought, this is a brilliant idea. Let's do it. Let's put our knowledge together. Let's write down what we know. And it turns out now that it's used in the industry, it's used at universities, it's used at engineering schools, it's used worldwide. So it's spanning the entire way from a good dictionary you could look up into. It's actually now, I think there's no week without I get an email from somebody out in the world that they have a serious problem they have written in the book that do like this and this. Should we do it like this and this or this way? And then we can guide them. It's intelligent marketing also, to get good friends out there to help them to change something.
Right.
Yeah. Also the National Association of Surface Finish in the state says that it's the most comprehensive work written in 40 years. And the Surface Association in the Netherlands states that this is the Surface Bible. So I like the idea of the Surface Bible.
So when you're writing the Surface Bible, how do you make decisions about what you keep in and what you omit?
So basically we thought that it should be a holistic view, so which we also wrote on the subtitle. That means we should give an overview of what we believe is available out there in the world to modify surfaces. Of course, it's folded with our knowledge and of course also lack of knowledge. So we have put everything in which we thought would be relevant. And it's also ending up with 400 pages on available characterization equipment, because it's also important to characterize what you're doing. As is the paint holding, is the coating holding, is there failures in the coating, how to examine that, how to evaluate that. We didn't say that this will be not put into it. We have also other chapters which is still not in the book, because we suddenly had to stop also because we have to get it out. We have a chapter on wood, painting of wood is not included. We have a chapter on concrete, how to paint concrete, because everything is made of concrete now also. So we have a lot of things that we still want to put into it, and we also have, which is also nice, we have I think maybe around 100 hours of movies, which has to be edited and put into movies, because you can write a book or a chapter on electroplating, but what about how to see it in the real world? What about anodization? So we have some good movies which are. Some of them are edited, some of them we are using privately when we teach, because then you put a movie up and everybody likes the movie, especially the young kids. So in that way, we want to put that into the next upgrade of the book with the Q codes or barcodes or whatever they call, so you can scan with your mobile phone and then you get a movie of what you're sitting and reading.
It would even seem that this could be native online. There's a website in chemical engineering called learnchemie.com. It is, at this point, it's probably been around for 10 years or so, but it has influenced countless chemical engineering students over the last decade. So what surprised you? What has surprised you, either in writing the book or in the reception of the book? What's been surprising?
How much time you can use on it. You can just continue and continue. And when you think a text is perfect, and then you continue, and then 3 months later you turn back to the text, then you like to edit it again. As this editing phase, it can continue forever. At a certain point you have to say, now we stop, no more. Because it's only you self that feels that it needs to be changed. I don't think the student or the readers will do it. It takes humongous amount of time. I think the time aspect was really surprising me. Yeah.
Was it because if it's going to take a ton of time, there must be a passion that you both had, and when was the moment that you realized, this is going to be a lot of work, but we just have to do it? Like, did you have a moment like that?
No. I have so many deadlines always, so I just continue. As I have the ability to work many hours. There was a point where my wife said, "Could you not just pack and go to Per and get it all over and done?" And I think that was the time when I realized maybe this editing. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth version of the files circulating every second night to each other. Maybe we should close this chapter and say, now this is good enough. Also, what has surprised me actually when it comes to my mind is to get people to support pictures. As we have this idea, we want to show this and this, and then we write to some people, can you help us with the picture of your process? We will of course recognize you in the figure captains, and then they send a shit picture and bad resolution. So to get something out or to get help is really is impossible. There are so many people out there that behave as they know a lot of things, but they cannot write, they cannot support you, they cannot help you. We have done nearly everything ourselves, because what is out there is low quality. You cannot use it, you cannot print it, you have to rewrite it, people get angry. So everything is done by ourselves.
Yeah. One of the best things about the book, it has all the technical stuff. It has the phase diagrams, etc. The illustrations are quite good, as well as you're just saying, the pictures of actual objects that have been plated or cars that have been painted or what have you. I could flip through this book, I could read it, but even for someone who just wanted some high-level perspective, it serves that purpose too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Rune Butchow, which we paid actually our designer by our own money. A good book needs good drawings. We want to make it different. A book that people like, a book people are proud of having. At least it's a book we are proud of having made. I should tell you a funny story, because when the book arrived in my house here, it's 11 ton. We ordered 11 ton of books. 6 tons on 11. These, where you go with a forklift and lift up 6 of these big ones. Or
wow.
11 of these big ones, 6 tons. So that was how it was. It filled totally my garage, and then I had this nightmare. It was going to be winter here, and that the book will get water,
right?
With sock water. So I had to carry all these books 11 ton into my house, and my children were not at home. It took a week to carry it in, and I'm married to a poet, so we have a lot of books already. We have more than 6,000 books in our home, and then I had to carry all these in. We have books everywhere. But slowly, the amount is decreasing.
I was going to ask, what percentage remain?
Yeah, actually, we have called something home from our stocks. We have a stock in Sweden because we also want to get it out in Sweden. We have some in Spain also. So we have called some of our book home. So we are reaching next lot of printing. Yeah,
I see. What I'm curious about the cover, because the cover is actually quite mesmerizing, at least to me. And apparently it's a museum in Mexico City, and it's decorated with 16,000 hexagonal aluminum tiles. And the photography is great. And I'll try and find a picture on the web of the museum and put it in the show notes, in addition to a link helping you find where you can get a copy of the book. But what was it about this museum's exterior that led you to put it on the book's cover?
It's brilliant because it's exactly what we want. Aluminum tiles, they're anodized, they can survive forever because they are self-passivating a surface, and it's or even a chapter. I think it's chapter 17 on anodization, which it is. I had originally put a Rosten sculpture on front of it because this is the iron oxide, the Cortena steel. It's a beautiful picture, and when I saw it the first time, I was absolutely not in doubt. So we bought the picture from the artist who made it.
What I like about it is it projects surface coatings and surface technology as relevant today and into the future, right? What you see a lot is of a statue or something like that, and certainly relevant for lots of things, but this gives you this sense that it's going to be with us today and forever. The technology, and you also have this mirror of the sun, and you have the different colors due to the reflectivity. It's very nice, and now it's even more nice because now they're building this European extremely large telescope in Chile. Where they are going to make this mirror of hexagon of smaller mirrors, which they can take out, clean, and recoat.
So we are involved in many things. We're also involved in aluminum oxide now. We're talking about aluminum oxide, which is covering the tiles here. We have also developed an aluminum oxide for CERN, this large 26-kilometer ring running between France and Switzerland.
Oh, okay.
Then they're going to upgrade their magnets. If you want to go to higher speed or higher velocity in the ring of the ions they're colliding to create the birth of the Earth and the elemental particle analysis or whatever they're doing, then you need more energy, higher speed, but then you need a larger ring, or you need better magnets to keep it in the same circumference.
I see.
So the only way forward is to make better magnets, and there we're also involved coating them.
So what about the coating makes it a better magnet?
The better magnets comes from superconducting niobium wires, but these has to be spaced with non-conducting superconducting spacers, and that can only be made by coating superconducting spacers, stainless steel at low temperature, with aluminum oxide to make a non-conducting surface on top of it.
So how do you put the aluminum oxide down?
Yeah, this is actually where we finally make a little capital on one of the research projects we have had some years ago. Some years ago, we set up to develop aluminum oxide. It's very complicated to deposit a non-conducting coating in a PVD unit because you're coating also the poles of your power supplies. So suddenly the plasmid disappeared. But we had a PhD. We developed a project together with the university and educated a PhD student in optimizing and developing new ideas on aluminum oxide. And we actually managed to get a stable process. And this is now so stable that we can grow what CERN wants. They want 50 micrometers of aluminum oxide that has a unique adhesion to the substrate. And I think we're the only one in the world that can supply such a device.
Wow. There's a lot of work going on with atomic layer deposition, which is, of course, the other extreme in thickness.
Yes.
But I'm excited to see that technique move out of the semiconductor industry into lots of other surface coating applications.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be only to make transistors. And there's some cool companies doing some neat things at very large scales with atomic layer deposition.
Yeah, and also Finland, I have several cooperation partners. Actually, I have a lot of cooperation partners all over the world. But I'm working very close to with some people in Finland, and Finland is very, very known for ALD. I think it was invented in Finland, where they have reel-to-wheel, also roll-to-roll ALD running with several processes on top of each other. So ALD is really also moving into new areas. There's also a chapter on ALD in our book. And I have also been involved to do embedded sensors on tools where we used a combination of our aluminum oxide and ALD to make a good electrical isolation layer towards the substrate, and then to do embedded sensors in tools.
Cool. So kind of like the force sensor you were talking about?
It's not the force sensor. The idea was to measure temperature in situ, but it's very complicated to do that on real tools parts because they are not so smooth as the silicon wafers. So to make perfect sensors on complicated three-dimensional geometries with tool steels, mold max or whatever you use for these injection molding tools is very, very complicated and not so much straightforward, I would say.
Right. One of the areas that I work in is in semiconductor nanowires, where you can kind of along the length of a one-dimensional structure build devices. And so one of the things I've been very intrigued by, it's a pretty simple idea, is if I have a whole bunch of PN junction nanowires where the wire, because it's nanoscale in its radial direction, is very bendable, but it's still silicon, and I can still put a PN junction in it. People make PN junction temperature sensors all the time, and the built-in voltage of a PN junction is heavily temperature dependent. So it'd be really cool with a very flexible form factor that's still silicon to get very accurate temperature sensors that you could coat some material with or coat a mold with, if you will.
Yeah, in principle you are right, but it starts all out with that you have a conducting substrate. the mold. And then to put something sensor device on top of that, you have to isolate that from the conducting substrate. So then you build a PVD, aluminum oxide or whatever. Then you have a small defect, and then immediately a few atoms comes down there, and then you have shortcut to the substrate. So and then it's not atomically flat. Then you have defects and humps, and it has been machined and milling and whatever. So it's really uphill. The one we succeeded with was a tool steel device, polished and like a wafer. Then we added aluminum oxide. Then we added ALD on top to cover ALD aluminum oxide to cover potential defects. Then we made, I think it was 20 PT100 sensors by evaporating platinum through a mask, and then we covered it again with an electrically isolated layer, and then we coated it again with a wear resistance, super slip, whatever coating, and then we measured that maybe 3 out of the 20 sensors survived on a model polished stainless steel substrate.
That's a good point. Yeah. The other point you raised there that I think is really important to mention is that these coatings are multi-compositional. You have many layers in high-performance coatings, right?
Yeah. That's also why you in the IC industry work under so strict environment in clean rooms and whatever on a super flat devices, and then you build. It's like building with Lego. Then you build up, and then you edge something away, and build up and edge something other away. It's a very, very complicated platform to bring into three-dimensional geometries on non-perfect substrates.
So one of the final questions I ask guests is a more kind of general question, and it's often the question, what are your 4 a.m. moments? Like, what keeps you up at night? But you already answered that, and you said it was a garage full of books, and you didn't want them to get wet. So I'll ask you a different question. You have a lot of experience technically and managerially at this point. So knowing what you know now, what would you go and tell your former self to do differently?
Oh, that's a big question. I think I regret a little that I have worked dedicated in some companies prior to this more open-minded position that I have now. Because if you work in a single company, then you serve the single company. Now I work in a company which has this task of helping others, which means that you're reaching out, you are talking to a lot of people, you get new ideas, you get new innovations, you use your old knowledge, your new knowledge, you use your network, you share your problems with people you are confidentiality with. So this sharing and open-minded working multidisciplinary in many different directions, you will not get that inside a single company. There's not a day where I do not have very intriguing emails, getting new ideas, asking for something, a new invention. I have a new idea, I can do it like this here. Why do not do like this here? It goes everywhere from applying paint, doing my PVD coating, which is my core business, to renewing windmills ideas and radars, and there's so many things going on, from medical to windmills to bio to chemistry to environmental. We even didn't talk about something which is my mind is completely filled of for the moment. That is a new type of way of making hydrogen. I actually started out by telling that I made hydrogen as a 10-year boy. Now I'm turning nearly 15. And now we're making hydrogen with a much better efficiency. I think very soon we will have a hydrogen large-scale plant with a historically high efficiency.
Wow.
So now we're going into a new area where we're also active, that is upgrading biogas, removing sulfur from biogas, generating hydrogen, using the hydrogen together with the CO2 to make methane and methanol. That's something Per Møller and I is talking very seriously about at the moment.
I think it's very clear that surface coatings is very diverse. You can pretty much work in any discipline, in terms of, maybe I should say, any technology. And so for those people who are interested in diverse careers and not getting pigeonholed in one area, this is the one for you. So, Lars Pleth Nielsen, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
It was a pleasure talking with you. Yeah.
You've been listening to Nanovation. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a rating or write a review on Apple Podcasts. Show notes are available at fillerlab.com/nanovation. Nanovation is recorded in the Marcus Nanotechnology Building on the campus of Georgia Tech. Andrew Cannon edits the show. I'm Mike Filler. See you next time. You know, Lego is pretty popular here. When I was a kid, I had a lot of Legos, and my children play with them every single day.
Yeah, and it's quite amazing because we expect it to survive what generation of the Lego we have. We hide it and give it to our next generation. So Lego has a serious problem now when they want to be more green, to change the material to something that is as reliable. And
right.
That's not going to be easy.
It's amazing to me, though, how well Lego bricks hold up.
Yeah. As I also have, I don't know how many boxes from my kids, which I want to give to the next generation.
Right.
So it's very intelligent type of toys where if you are the imagination type where you like to create something without, sometimes you create it with a manual, but sometimes you also play in the open. Doing whatever you like, and my kids had, for instance, some years where they didn't follow any manual at all, but they built in symmetry, as a 4-fold symmetry, 6-fold symmetry, with mirror lines, and suddenly I realized how much they are thinking in mirrors and symmetry in a very young age.
Yeah. We do. So we follow the manual sometimes, and of course the kids build on their own sometimes. One of the things that they like to do is check out the videos of people who have built these just amazing builds of large, complicated things. People build entire cars out of Legos, or people that build, rockets out of Legos, and the kids really enjoy seeing all the creativity that's out there as well, in addition to doing it on their own. That's pretty cool. I definitely didn't have that when I was a kid. I turned out okay though, so.
Yeah, but it's very nice. There is a Legoland in the States as well, in Florida, I think.
I know there's one in California.
Okay.
There may be one in Florida as well. And I have been to neither. I tell you though, I remember as a kid, my parents had visited Legoland in Denmark, and they brought home this book, not a catalog, but a kind of a tourism book of Legoland, and I remember just staring at that book for hours. Pictures of the cities and people, buildings that are about waist high and things like that. I'll go there at one point. It's actually pretty disappointing that I fly through Copenhagen enough on my way to Lund, and I take the train from Copenhagen to Lund, and I've never gone to Legoland, which I need to fix. I need to fix that.
And Legoland is no longer part of the Lego family dynasty, because they had used economical problems some years ago, where they went into electronical games and also their own toy dressing company, and at that time they were nearly bankrupt. So they sold Legoland to another capital fund somehow. So Legoland is no longer part of Lego, but it's of course Lego. Yeah.
Right, and it's also important to know that Lego is plural, right? You don't say Legos.
No,
is that correct?
No, that doesn't work. It doesn't work. Lego. If you have one piece, then it's one piece of Lego, and if you have many pieces of Lego, it's the same.
I thank you very much. This was really enjoyable for me, and I thank you for the books too.
No problem, Mike. I used to say that it's always good to make noise, because something always comes out of noise.